Now, South Africa's borrowing cycle will not stop and will instead prove to be a major problem in the future. That's the view of Volker von Widdern of the Riskonet Africa. Eskom has once again been allocated a bailout by Treasury, and according to von Widdern, this will only mean more borrowing down the road. He joins me now to discuss the issue further. Thank you very much for your time here on ENCA. Now, of course, the finance minister, I'd assume, had very little choice in terms of giving Eskom a little bit or more than half of the money that it owes. You know, as South Africans, we don't want to see Eskom being bailed out continuously, especially when we have stage 6 rolling blackouts. But he had very little choice, did he?
Good afternoon to you and your viewers. Yes, the issue is what happens with Eskom and how can they free up cash flow that Eskom can continue with its work, and then obviously the state had to intervene and provide some support.
Yeah, I think for many South Africans as well is the transparency around, you know, the finance minister maybe also talking about the conditions with us as South Africans, the conditions to which Eskom should meet to be able to get this money and tell us how they're using it, etc. That's what many South Africans say has not been something that they can get access to very easily.
Yes, that certainly does help, and I think everyone acknowledges that you know, the best intentions are there. It may also be a counterpoint that I don't think Eskom's necessarily been short of money to perform the maintenance that it wants to do, nor is money necessarily solving the problem about poor or stolen coal delivery. So Eskom is paying for its coal. I don't think there's a shortage of money there. The issue is the shortage of the coal that it was meant to arrive in the power station. So we've got, you know, strategic and structural or systemic risks in that environment that aren't really driven by money. However, Eskom was facing some debt repayment obligations, and that was something difficult, and they were finding it difficult to refinance those debt repayment obligations, and that's where the state's assistance has been very important as well.
But also, this is only just over 50% of the total 400 billion rand debt. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the power utility is totally out of the woods, right? You know, is it possible that at some point we'll hear of another bailout or them asking for another bailout?
I think what we have, and perhaps the part of the message that I was looking to hear, which we didn't, was that the utility may need less money from an electricity tariff increase point of view, because it doesn't have to spend so much money on interest costs. So that may still come through in the future. But I think at this level, Eskom is actually making a profit, but it needs to generate significant more cash in order to pay back loans and invest in the future. So it still has to build more capacity in the future and raise future debts. And I think that's the problem. Its balance sheet became so overgeared and their debt servicing costs became so high that they wouldn't be able to sustain their significant programs in the future. So right now, with the accommodation, it certainly means that Eskom will make a significant profit. It'll have more than sufficient ongoing cash to do its maintenance. And the issue is now execution again. Will we get the maintenance that's required, and will we make sure that we get reliability and of coal and other? However, the other side of it is that the government now picks up the debt servicing cost of 50 billion, and that then crowds out money that should go to health, education, and other things for the citizen. So the citizen actually is paying by less money being available, and Eskom is getting the freedom to actually do more of the work that it needs for its power stations.
And I think as citizens, we wouldn't have a problem, not entirely, if, you know, we saw that the money that is being given to Eskom is working the right way. Because at the end of the day, the energy crisis is costing everything, from the education you talk about to the health departments that you talk about, etc. As long as we continue with this energy crisis, the country is still stuck or is deteriorating even further.
Yes, so the question would then be, and of course we can all make a suggestion, and we're not saying, you know, we have a perfect answer, but perhaps the investment of this is that we should really accelerate the investment in transmission so that as much alternative energy can be connected to the grid as possible over the next 2, 3, 5 years. Now, we're not sure if that's actually part of the deal. I heard a comment by our finance minister that operational audits and assessments would be done. 100% okay, but one can audit the performance of a 50-year-old power station until the cows come home with respect. That doesn't necessarily add capacity. One needs to add fresh, new capacity at the new, much more efficient, lower input costs that are coming through, whether it's gas or renewables, and add that capacity where it is the most efficiently connectable to the grid. And that's where transmission comes in, and opening up access to transmission. Now, if Eskom could do that with its newly enhanced cash flow, that would certainly help South Africa, and our risk scenarios would change significantly after that.
Well, Mr. van Widdern, you also raised quite an important point in your statement, and I just want to remind you of what you said. You said debt relief is one thing, but investors across the FDI spectrum are looking for leadership skill and stability, which does not exist right now. Is this what you truly believe, that we don't have the stability and expertise in South Africa at all at the moment to fix Eskom?
So perhaps in terms of the summary of that, with respect and apology to the people in place, the removal and the exit of the CEO is one. But I think one of the issues in terms of that summary is that there has been much slower than expected execution of the plans that we needed at Eskom, the rollout of the IPP programs, the coordination between the state departments and so forth. And so if leadership can solve that problem and we really get the kind of speed of execution that people know we can achieve, that's important. Now, in other presentations, and to give you the contrast, Germany and Holland are utterly dependent on Russian gas. In Germany's case, if I remember the number correctly, it took 202 days to change the gas housings that bring gas from pipes to ship-borne gas. 202 days. In Holland, it took 165 days to do that. They've completely changed their gas inputs, and they've been able to switch their source of energy in 160 or 200 days. We are sitting here thousands of days later, and it's something that we really need to think about. So leadership and execution at that level can significantly change our environment.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time and your expertise here on ENCA. That was Volker van Widdern just speaking to us there about his thoughts around Eskom receiving that 250 billion rand bailout to sort out its 400 billion rand debt.